So this is my backpack fly fishing kit. This is what I take on trips where I'm expecting to get to do a little bit of fishing or some fishing, but that's not the whole focus of the trip. If I'm going on a trip where I know I'm hiking in and planning on fishing for multiple days, then I'll take a little bit more extensive kit than this. Likewise, if I'm on a trip where I may get to fish, may not, but I'm mostly backpacking, then I'll take a little bit more pared down kit. But I'm going to go through the contents of this with you, why I use what I use, and kind of talk through everything. In the description below, I'm going to include links to all these items, as well as the weights that I've measured on my own scale here. But yeah, let's hop into it. So this pouch itself is a Zimmerbuilt Strap Pack. He makes these primarily for tenkara fishing, but it works great for any kind of fly fishing, really. I do have some custom additions. I had him add these 2 D loops to the top here. That just allows me to attach a neck lanyard to it. Otherwise, the bag's great. As you see here, it's got this slip pocket in the back. It's got 2 loops here for attaching clips to put it on the shoulder strap of a backpack, as well as this elastic here for the same purpose. So if you wanted to, you could use this as a side pocket on the straps of your backpack, either for fishing, snacks, whatever. Here on the front, it's got a large main pocket. It's got 2 thin slip pockets on the sides. These are pretty small. They're not particularly useful, I'll be honest. And then, of course, it's got a large main compartment here as well. This does have a small little waterproof zipper on it. This thing weighs in at 53 grams or 1.9 ounces. But it's been a great little pack. Yona Packs make some cool bags as well. And there's some other cottage manufacturers that are making some ultralight little pouches and fanny packs and things like that. But this is what I've chosen to use. I've used some other stuff too, but this is what I'm using right now. So first thing here is my clamps. So these are a Dr. Slick 4-inch scissor clamp. So they are a scissor clamp, which means they have scissors here, and they also just have your traditional hemostat jaws. That's great for fine detail work, if I'm cutting, trimming flies, things like that. I do usually have a knife in my pocket, and I'm also bad to cut line with my teeth as well, but these give you a little bit more utility, and then of course for taking flies out of fish's mouths. They are short, being 4 inches, but on those small wild trout streams, you're really not going to ever have to get way back in there. 10-inch or less is probably your average fish size, and if you catch something over about 14 inches, you've got a real monster. So these have been plenty of length for me for what I've needed. Those weigh in at 31 grams or about an ounce. Also in this front pocket, I have my tippet. So tippet, of course, is going to be dependent on the trip. Usually I take 4X and 5X. In here right now, I've got 5X and 5.5X. I think I was tenkara fishing last time I used this pack. But I've kind of settled for my backpacking and ultralight needs on Trout Hunter Tippet. I don't know that it's any better than any other brand of tippet, but what I do like is that these spools are significantly lighter than something like an SA spool or an Orvis spool or even a Cortland spool, as you'll see here. So these little spools weigh in at 9 grams. If I'm really trying to go light, I've actually found that you can cut that insert out with a pair of wire cutters and shave a couple grams there as well. But usually I'm carrying 4 and 5X. I kind of go between mono and fluorocarbon depending on the trip. For tenkara, I like a 5X and a 5.5X, just because typically you don't want to fish over 5X on a tenkara rod because they are a little bit more fragile and you don't have any like rod protection because of the lack of a reel. Here in the back of the pack in this little slip pocket is where I keep my spare leaders. I keep 2 7.5-foot 4X leaders. That's by far what I use most often. If I need something lighter, I can always add a little bit of 5X tippet to them as well. Also here on the outside of the pack, in this side pocket on this side, I have a little ultralight DIY stringer. Sometimes I'll even carry more than one of these. This thing is crazy lightweight. It's just some lightweight Dyneema cord, and then I actually use just a piece of coat hanger as my metal piece to insert through a fish's gills. Now, I don't typically keep fish, but especially on wild trout streams, and particularly with brook trout, those fish are pretty bad to overpopulate streams, actually. So sometimes it can not only be not harmful, but actually beneficial to those fisheries to keep some fish. I'll take multiple sometimes if I'm planning to keep fish so that I can put a fish or two on a stringer, tie it to a rock or a branch and leave that fish there and come back later. Now you'll need to check with any kind of regulations as far as if that's allowed or not, but it keeps you from having to drag that fish as you fish, and it keeps that fish fresher longer. especially on some of our little mountain streams around here. If you're having to drag a fish behind you, scrambling up boulders and rocks and stuff, you're in for a long day. On this other side here is where I keep my floatant. So this little floatant container actually comes from Litesmith gear. So they make a lot of different little containers. This one just has Aquel in it. I think this one is actually a 0.25 ounce, so that's a fluid ounce, or 7.5 milliliters. This is a snap cap is what they call it. You shed a lot of weight by paring down from a larger floatant canister, and you really don't need much floatant. If you're anything like me, I don't go through a bottle like this every couple of years maybe. So paring it down to something smaller, and if you really wanted to go lightweight, I've even got this little 0.1 ounce or 3 ml dropper bottle. This one's extremely lightweight as well. I'm going to put, like I said, all those weights in the description for you. But this is the one that I use mostly. It actually fits the same lid as these Loon bottles do. So that goes it for the outside of the bag here. Let's hop inside and we'll kind of go through that. Again, this is a very simple pared down kit. Doesn't have a whole lot. So in here, in this little snap top container, I keep some desiccant. So this is actually high and dry powdered floatant and desiccant. I really like having both a liquid floatant and a desiccant. If I'm just going lightweight, I'm just going to have regular floatant. But desiccant's really nice when your fly starts getting waterlogged, starts getting slimed up, you catch some fish on it. You can just insert your fly in here, shake this up, and it dries that fly off and kind of gives it a new water repellent floatant coating. But I didn't want to take this whole big thing, and it's really not necessary. So this little container is great for that. Usually I'll do a pre-treatment before I start fishing with my Aquel or gink or whatever. And then as I'm fishing, if I need to reapply, then that's when I'm using this desiccant to both dry it out and give it that new floatant coating. Lastly, here is my actual fly boxes. So I take 2 fly boxes. It's a little overkill, but I'm gonna tell you why. I like to fish some larger, bulkier flies. And because of that, I like some kind of box that has just some open storage, like this little Umpqua box. I actually don't know that Umpqua makes this box anymore, but it looks to be the exact same thing as a Hareline Midge Box. This little box comes in at 3/4 of an ounce. When you get these from the factory, they're actually gonna have 6 compartments here. What I've done is just to Dremel out, just Dremel out that one there, and then I've also Dremeled out this one here, and that just lets me store a little bit larger size of flies. Your fly selection is going to be very dependent on your fishery, but in here I've got some larger dries, like some chubby Chernobyls, some Jaegers, bigger humpies, stimulators, things like that. Always have some black woolly boogers. All of my nymphs and streamers have weight incorporated because I don't like to take split shot. And then I've got some larger sparkle minnows over here. So that's it for kind of my bigger stuff. Smaller stuff is going to be in this Morell pocket box. Again, if I'm just doing a trip where I don't know if I'm going to get a fish or not, usually this box doesn't come and it's just this Morell pocket box. This Morell box is about an ounce, including all the flies. In here I've got smaller dries like Parachute Adams, like Cahill, some wolves, elk hairs, some ant patterns. Otherwise I've got woolly boogers again, some smaller nymphs like pheasant tails, hare's ears. I do keep some scud patterns, stoneflies too. Again, this is going to be dependent on where you're fishing. If I'm fishing out west and I'm fishing places that have a lot of scuds or have a lot more caddis flies, then I'm taking more of that kind of stuff. But this is a pretty general selection here that'll get you through about anything. The thing about those backcountry streams and backcountry trout fisheries is that those fish aren't going to be extremely picky because they're not getting fished over a whole lot. Those fish are pretty opportunistic, especially down here in the southeast. Our streams just don't have a ton of nutrient density. But that is really it for my kit. Again, this is my pack. My rods kind of change based on the trip. Of course, if weight is your ultimate concern, then it's pretty difficult to beat a Tenkara setup. I like to fish Western outfits more, but if I'm going really lightweight, then a Tenkara setup usually works its way into my pack somehow. But that's my ultralight fishing kit. This is what I take with me. Again, it kind of changes depending on the trip. I'll probably make some videos about a little bit more fleshed out kit as well as a little bit more minimalist kit at some point too. But this is kind of my bread and butter ultralight fly fishing kit when I'm fishing wild trout streams and stuff like that for trout. As always, if you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.